Behind the lines in 3, 2, 1, rebuild!
Rebuild starts with a 20-second autonomous period. These robots are moving around pre-programmed and trying to gather up as many of those fuel and score them into their hubs as possible. There's a slight advantage for the Alliance that scores the most during this autonomous time. Red Alliance putting up a good effort. Blue Alliance able to match them so far, neck and neck for most of this autonomous time period. Blue Alliance just shy of the Red Alliance, which will probably get that advantage. Next 22 minutes and 20 seconds is all teleoperated. Human players have picked up their controllers and driving the robots that their team built this season. The first 10 seconds here we witnessed was that transition period where both of those hubs were active. We heard that power-up sound, and now just the Blue Alliance hub is active. During this time, the Red Alliance is playing a little bit of Hungry Hippo, trying to pick up that fuel that's available to them in the neutral zone and pile it up in the Alliance side to make sure they're ready for when their hub is active. Blue Alliance with their current active hub, scoring those yellow spheres known as fuel to get points for their Alliance. Currently boasting 112 points, well surpassing that 100 requirement for the energized ranking point threshold. Red Alliance now getting their opportunity to score points, blowing past where they were and surpassing the Blue Alliance score of 125. Red Alliance still has 12 seconds with their active hub to make that point difference even larger, presenting them as the potential victors for this match. Blue Alliance well stocked up with their coppers, ready to launch a volley of fuel. That's coming from 1720 Fixed Gears, 4417 Bravado, and also joining them, one of our lovely Ho teams, 8116 Hatchet Robotics, continuing to apply that point pressure onto their opponents. Cyber 2, 3940, making use of a shuttling mechanism where they're picking up that fuel and launching it towards their Alliance station, hoping to pick that up for a later time and deliver it into their hub once it's active. Red Alliance getting that active hub. A couple of those game pieces scored from their human player behind the outpost. Teams have to push that fuel underneath the outpost slot and pass it over to their human players, giving them an opportunity to score as well. Again, it doesn't matter who scores those points, but it's 1 point per fuel in an active hub. Nearing the end game period, we'll hear that steam whistle, which means that there's 30 seconds remaining, and both those hubs have become reactivated. Score is currently 213 to 200, a well-scoring match on both of these Alliance side. Blue Alliance eyeing up that 360 ranking point requirement for Supercharged, but there's only 15 seconds remaining in this match. Red Alliance continuing to apply some of that point pressure, potentially considering a climb for some additional points, but there's only 5 seconds in match, counting them down in 3, 2, 1. That's the end of qualification match 26. Stick tight to see how those scores total up. Teams were neck and neck, but Blue Alliance taking with 260 over Red Alliance's 214. Big differentiator, of course, to teleoperated fuel. Both of these teams getting that energized ranking point for scoring more than 100 of said fuel. But the Blue Alliance getting those extra 3 ranking points for winning the match. Stick tight for qualification match 27 here at the FIN District event in Washington, presented by Vincennes University.